This is Tom Fox, and I'd like to welcome you to a new season of the award winning Adventures in Compliance, the podcast where we look at the Sherlock Holmes short stories, movies, novels, and related material from the angle of compliance. The casebook of Sherlock Holmes is the final set of 12 out of a total of 56 Sherlock Holmes short stories published by author Conan Doyle. These were published, of course, in the Strand magazine between October 1921 and April 1927. The books rather, are two of the short stories, The Adventure of the Veiled Lodger and The Old Shuscombe Old Place, were the last of the Sherlock Holmes works protected by copyright. Although some of the stories are comparable with earlier works, many people feel that this is a lesser offering of Holmes, to which I wholeheartedly disagree. I hope that you will join us for this exploration of the final collected works of Sherlock Holmes as we take a deep dive literally into business ethics, leadership, investigative strategies, pattern recognition, and perhaps even portending the use of AI and generative AI as a tool for the compliance professional. There are some great stories in here, and I know you will enjoy them. And I hope you will enjoy this season of Adventures in Compliance really as much as I've enjoyed reading the stories. Today, we're going to take up one of my favorites and one of the best known stories for Conan Doyle's predilection for a good tale of the supernatural, the Sussex Vampire, which premiered in the Strand magazine in January of 1924. We're going to have a quick word from our network sponsor, Ethico, then we'll be right back.
If you're a compliance officer, middle managers are crucial in getting your programs from you to your frontline employees. But how do we activate those managers and get them on our side? Ethico's new Middle Manager Toolkit equips you with the skills needed to empower your managers, to promote a culture where ethical behavior thrives and employees feel empowered to speak up. Learn how to turn frontline managers into ethical leaders with our new white paper, Empowering Middle Managers as Ethics Champions. And did I mention you can get the whole toolkit for free? Head to ethico.com to download the full toolkit today.
For the upcoming Compliance Week celebration in November, check out The Compliance Kids. It's my 3-book children's series on compliance and compliance professionals for children. But they make great gifts and great training tools for your employees. You can check it out on Amazon.com. We've linked to it in the show notes. Our story begins as Holmes receives an odd letter making references to vampires. One Robert Ferguson comes to 221B Baker Street the next morning and has become convinced that his Peruvian second wife has been sucking their baby son's blood. By his first wife, he has a 15-year-old son named Jack, who has suffered an unfortunate accident as a child, and now, although he can still walk, does not have the full use of his legs. Since the start of the bloodsucking, Jack has been unaccountably struck twice by his stepmother, although Mr. Ferguson cannot imagine why. Ever since being found out by her husband, she has locked herself in a room and refuses to come out. Only her Peruvian maid, Dolores, is allowed in. She takes Mrs. Ferguson her meals. Even before Holmes and Watson set off to Mr. Ferguson's home in Sussex, Holmes has worked out what is going on, and it has nothing to do with vampires. Holmes' trip is made simply to observe and confirm what he has already deduced. In their arrival, in Sussex, Mrs. Ferguson's maid announces her mistress is ill, and Dr. Watson offers to help. He finds an agitated woman upstairs. She speaks of all being destroyed and of sacrificing herself rather than breaking her husband's heart. She also demands that her child, who has been with the nurse, Mrs. Mason, ever since Mr. Ferguson found out about the blood-sucking incidents. Holmes examines the South American weapons displayed in the house and meets with the children. While Mr. Ferguson is doting on his younger son, Watson notices Holmes is gazing out the window. He cannot imagine why his friend is doing this. Holmes then reveals the truth about what has been happening. much to the relief of Mrs. Ferguson, as this is exactly what she's been hoping for, the truth to come from someone else's lips. It turns out the culprit is Jack, Mr. Ferguson's elder son, who is extremely jealous of his younger half-brother. Holmes has confirmed this by looking at Jack's reflection in the window while his father's attention was on the baby. Jack has been attempting to murder his half-brother by poisoning him with darts. His stepmother's behavior of sucking the baby's neck is thereby explained. She was sucking the poison out. It also explains why she struck Jack and why she is sick when Holmes and Watson arrive. The wounds, therefore, are caused by the darts, not by her biting. Mrs. Ferguson had not wanted to tell her husband what Jack had done. This is perhaps Conan Doyle's most famous tale around the supernatural, the adventure of the Sussex vampire, a story that has been cited more than once as a personal tribute to Dracula. It features the necessary ingredients for a good vampire tale: a child mysteriously weakening and bearing twin telltale fang marks on his throat, a mysterious South American mother who is seen by the nurse with her mouth sucking at the child's throat, Holmes, the master of logic and common sense, apparently battling with the realization that here for once is a case that defines all of his learning and background. But what, he asks his faithful sidekick, Dr. Watson, at the outset of the tale, what have we to do here with walking corpses who can only be held in their graves by stakes driven through their hearts? Indeed, it is pure lunacy. And so it is proved, as the vampire turned out to be a 15-year-old boy, jealous of his half-brother, his newly remarried father just foisted upon him and amusing himself by firing poison darts into the infant's neck. Poison that his stepmother then dutifully sucked out of the wounds to prevent her husband from discovering what a nasty little brat he has sired during his first marriage. Such a down-to-earth solution to what could have been a very jolly romp through the undead denizens of the English countryside has not, of course, stilled the voices of those who seek out the arcane meaning from every word Conan Doyle wrote. Riley, we note that has there ever been a volume published devoted wholly to Conan Doyle's vampire stories without one of the tales actually involving anything remotely resembling a vampire? Other writings that not only discuss Holmes' relationships with the characters in the Stoker novel, but even suggest that the detective and the vampire had come to a certain arrangement. Under those terms, neither would do anything that impinged upon the other's territory. This has led to a later novel of Sherlock Holmes versus Dracula that we will take up in another podcast episode. I wanted to explore the adventure of the Sussex vampire from the business leadership for corporate compliance professionals' perspective. Here's how some of the story's key elements can translate into powerful takeaways for the compliance professional. Number one, avoid jumping to conclusions. Holmes approaches the case with a skepticism that prevents him from making rash assumptions, even when others quickly jump to sensational conclusions about vampirism. This approach is critical in compliance, where leaders must remain unbiased and grounded in evidence, resisting the urge to assume the worst in ambiguous situations. For example, when confronted with potential fraud or misconduct, it is essential to investigate with an open mind and rather than assuming guilt based on circumstantial evidence alone. Number two, prioritize investigation integrity over public perception. In this story, Holmes is keenly aware of the need for discretion. He handles the investigation in a way that protects the family's reputation while still seeking the truth. For compliance professionals, confidentiality is crucial to maintaining integrity in investigations, both to protect individuals involved and to ensure that information is not prematurely leaked. Leaders in compliance can take a lesson here in balancing transparency with the need for confidentiality to avoid undue reputational harm. Number three, adopt a holistic view of the situation. Holmes considers a variety of factors, including family dynamics, cultural background, and individual behaviors before drawing conclusions. This reflects on the importance of contextual understanding in compliance. Leaders must consider not just the act, but the motivations, influences, and environment surrounding the behavior. A holistic approach often leads to a more nuanced and accurate understanding of compliance risk. Number 4, question assumptions and probe underlying motivations. In this story, Holmes quickly dismisses the supernatural explanations and seeks a rational one, uncovering deeper underlying motivations at play. For compliance professionals, this lesson emphasizes the importance of probing beyond surface level explanations when dealing with the issues of ethics and compliance. Often, misconduct may stem from unmet needs or misguided incentives within the corporate structure. Effective leaders recognize the importance of identifying and addressing the root causes rather than dealing with just symptoms. Number 5, empathy is a critical investigative tool. Holmes' compassion for the family involved helps him solve the case without causing unnecessary distress. Similarly, in compliance, understanding and empathizing with employees' experiences and perspectives can lead to more effective investigations. By fostering a supportive atmosphere, compliance leaders can encourage openness, making it easier for employees to share information crucial to understanding potential issues fully. Number 6, maintain a problem-solving mindset amidst complexity. The Sussex vampire reminds us that not all the problems have clear solutions. Holmes' focus and adaptability when faced with a complex situation are qualities every compliance leader can adopt. Compliance issues are often multifaceted, with many variables in play, and a strong leader remains flexible and innovative, adapting strategies as new information becomes available. 7, the power of communication and clarity. Holmes excels in explaining complex matters simply and directly, ensuring his clients understand his reasoning. In compliance, clear communications is crucial, especially when explaining policies or the reasons behind compliance decisions. Leaders who communicate transparency can foster greater trust and buy-in from employees, making it more likely they'll adhere to compliance programs. The adventure of the Sussex vampire serves as a reminder that leadership is in compliance, that about blending empathy, discretion, and commitment to the truth. By drawing on these principles, compliance professionals can better navigate the nuanced and often complex ethical landscapes they face in the modern business world. To the final collected works of Sherlock Holmes, the Casebook of Sherlock Holmes. As I mentioned at the start of this podcast, Ethico is the Compliance Podcast Network sponsor, and their management toolkit is a great tool for you to use. It's available free, and check out the link in the show notes for more information on it. I hope you will join me on Tuesday, November 19th, for the first annual Agora Awards for Excellence in Podcasting, hosted by the Compliance Podcast Network. The event will be from noon to 3, and we're going to link to it in the show notes. It's at no charge. The Compliance Podcast Network will honor Mary Shirley and Lisa Fine, the co-founders of Great Women in Compliance, for their work leading the GWIC community and literally changing the world through podcasting. The Compliance Podcast Network and Adventures in Compliance will be off the week of Thanksgiving. So our next episode will be Monday, December 2nd, where we'll take up the adventures, the three Garadems. If you're a fan of Sherlock Holmes, if you have any favorite short stories or novels or movies or television shows, I'd love to have you come on and co-host with me on an upcoming episode of Adventures in Compliance. So please reach out to me at tfox@tfoxlaw.com. The award-winning Adventures in Compliance is a production of the Compliance Podcast Network.